So once you have nailed eating enough fruits and vegetables, this is a great place to put a little extra focus. Hit me, producer Potts.
Dr. Sarah, for those of us who are already really diligent about getting in our fruits and vegetables, are there specific food families we can focus on to increase the nutrient density and the health benefits from those added nutrients? And then how much of those specific food families can we or should we be aiming to get each week to reap all those benefits?
Absolutely. So there are 5 vegetable families and 2 fruit families that are particularly health beneficial when we consume them regularly, in part because they have a collection or some specific nutrients that are really hard or impossible to get from other foods. So once you have nailed eating enough fruits and vegetables, this is a great place to put a little extra focus. So I won't make you wait. I'm just going to say what all of those fruit and vegetable families are and how much of them we should be adding for. And then I hope you will stick around to learn more about the what, why, and how. But let's just spoil. We're just going to spoil the end. So the vegetable families are cruciferous vegetables. Ideally, like a serving per day, or like on average, so 7 servings per week. That's the cabbage family that includes foods like broccoli, kale, arugula, turnips, radishes. Next is leafy vegetables, which, yes, some are cruciferous vegetables like kale and arugula. And again, we would average about a serving per day, so maybe aiming for 7 servings per week. Third is root vegetables, and that includes actually some foods that aren't even technically root vegetables like winter squash, but anything that is a root, tuber, corm, or kind of starchy falls into this category. And again, a really strong case can be made for a serving per day on average, so thinking about 7 servings per week. Fourth is mushrooms. Any mushrooms that you like, raw or cooked, doesn't matter. And even just 3 servings per week is associated with huge health benefit. And then last for vegetables is alliums, the onion family. And this includes garlic, which is technically a spice, and a serving of garlic is just 1 tablespoon or about 3 cloves. So much easier to hit your allium servings if you are incorporating garlic. And again, a strong case can be made for aiming for 3 servings per week. For the fruit families that are particularly beneficial, the first one is berries. Even just 2 servings per week will yield health benefit. And the second fruit family that is particularly beneficial is citrus fruits. That includes oranges, tangerines, mandarins, lemons, limes, grapefruit. And I think a really good goal for citrus fruits is 3 servings per week.
Okay, so now that we know those specific food families, we have an idea of the servings. Before you dive into all the fascinating whys, can you tell our audience where they can find the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix, which is an easy way to track all these if you want to really take that nutrient density to the next level?
Yeah, so the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix has an entire section dedicated to tracking these foods specifically. And you can either get that in my book, Nutrivore, The Radical New Science for Getting the Nutrients You Need for the Foods You Eat. And of course, my book is the most comprehensive resource for adopting a Nutrivore approach. Or if you would prefer, you can get the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix as a purely digital resource on my website, nutrivore.com.
Okay, let's jump into our first vegetable family, cruciferous vegetables.
Cruciferous vegetables tend to be great sources of fiber, vitamin C, vitamin K, biotin, folate, manganese, carotenoids, many of which are vitamin A precursors, and polyphenols. But the nutrient that they contain that kind of elevates them to this Nutrivore foundational food status, meaning a food worthy of our intention on incorporating more of into our diets, is a really special class of phytonutrients called glucosinolates. Glucosinolates really powerfully reduce risk of cancer, cardiovascular disease, and this is a group of nutrients, so some have some additional benefits. For example, there are some that are really good at reducing risk of Alzheimer's disease. A 2017 meta-analysis showed that eating 100 grams of cruciferous vegetables per day, which is about 1 serving, reduced risk of all-cause mortality, which is an indirect measure of overall health and longevity, by 12%. A serving for most cruciferous vegetables is 1 cup measured raw and chopped. That shrinks to about half a cup when cooked, or 2 cups for leafy cruciferous vegetables like kale, arugula, mustard greens, or collard greens. That still also shrinks to about half a cup when cooked.
All right, what about leafy vegetables?
Leafy vegetables are another great source of fiber. They have some really cool sugars that are beneficial for the gut microbiome, not sugars that our bodies can use, but sugars that our gut bacteria love. They are, on average, our best food sources of vitamin K, which is really important for reducing risk of cardiovascular disease and osteoporosis. And they also tend to be great sources of folate, manganese, magnesium, carotenoids, and polyphenols. And the benefits of leafy greens are really wide-ranging. For example, a 2018 study showed that the older adults who ate the most leafy greens, which was just 1 1/3 servings per day, were the equivalent of 11 years younger in cognitive age than the older adults who didn't eat very many greens. A 1999 study showed that people who ate salad vegetables, leafy greens, most days had an 84% reduced risk of developing type 2 diabetes than the people who hardly ate any. And a 2019 study showed that eating 100 grams of leafy greens per day, that's about 1 1/3 servings, depending on exactly which leafy green we're talking about, reduced risk of all-cause mortality by 22%. So with leafy greens, because there's a lot more air when we pack it into a measuring cup, we call a serving 2 cups, or about the same volume as 2 fists if you're just eyeballing it on your plate. And for most leafy greens, that shrinks down to a half cup or even less when cooked. Like for spinach, it's like a third of a cup. So if you're struggling to get in more leafy greens, cooking them down or adding them to a smoothie is a great way to go.
Okay, on to root vegetables.
So root vegetables obviously include actual real roots and tubers and rhizomes and corms, but also a variety of vegetables that have similar nutrients in them, like winter squash. And we can even categorize plantains as root vegetables, at least nutritionally. So root vegetables are very nutrient-dense sources of slow-burning carbohydrates. They have diverse beneficial fiber types, and they tend to be great sources of all of the B vitamins other than B12, plus copper, magnesium, manganese, phosphorus, and potassium. A 2019 study showed that for every 100 grams of root vegetables we add daily, and that is not even a full serving, it's more like 2/3 of a serving, we reduce risk of all-cause mortality by 24%. And if you're worried about the carbohydrates in root vegetables, a 2012 study showed that the people who ate the most root vegetables had a 13% reduced risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to the people who abstained. So again, a very strong case can be made for aiming for about a serving per day, at least on average. So 7 servings per week. And a serving for root vegetables is 1 cup measured raw and chopped, which shrinks down to about half a cup once cooked.
Okay, next is mushrooms, one of your favorite vegetables.
Mushrooms have so many nutrients that are really, really hard to get from other foods, including unique beneficial fiber types like chitin and chitosan fiber. They're one of our best source of beta-glucan fiber types. And I think the coolest thing they have is an amino acid called ergothioneine, which is strongly antioxidant and has been shown to reduce the risk of all of the health conditions associated with aging. So much so, it has been nicknamed by scientists the longevity vitamin. A 2019 study showed that 100 grams of mushrooms per day, which is about 1 1/3 servings, reduced risk of all-cause mortality by 26%. And a 2021 study showed that any amount of mushrooms, even a couple of servings per week, reduces risk of all-cause mortality by 16%. And a serving is also defined as 1 cup measured raw and chopped. And mushrooms tend to have pretty high water content, so they will shrink down to about a half a cup or even less when cooked.
Okay, on to alliums.
Alliums, the onion family, includes onions, chives, leeks, and garlic. They also are packed with B vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin K, manganese, potassium, copper. But the really cool thing that alliums have that makes them nutritionally unique is a class of phytonutrients called thiosulfonates. Thiosulfonates have been shown to very strongly reduce the risk of cancer, and they're also pretty good at reducing cardiovascular disease risk too. A 2019 meta-analysis showed that eating 100 grams of alliums per day, that's about one serving, resulted in a 24% reduced risk of all-cause mortality. But we definitely don't need to eat that much alliums to see a benefit. A 2020 study showed that eating just half a serving of alliums per day, 3 to 4 servings per week, decreased risk of cardiovascular disease by 21%. So a serving for onions or leeks is 1 cup measured raw and chopped, that approximate volume of the fist again. For chives, it's a 1/4 cup, and for garlic, it's 1 tablespoon or about 3 cloves.
Okay, now on to our 2 fruit families. Let's start with berries, one of my favorite types of fruit.
So when we're talking about berries, we're again talking about the culinary definitions of berries, not the botanical ones. Like botanically, bananas are a berry. But what we're really talking about is brightly colored, pulpy fruit with lots of seeds. So things that have berries in the name, like strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, cranberries. They have some really cool fiber types that we don't get as much of in other foods, like lignans. They're good sources of vitamin C. Many are good sources of vitamin K. They tend to be high in manganese, and they're packed with polyphenols, especially anthocyanins and anthocyanidins, which, by the way, are a class of polyphenols that are really important for pain management and neurological health. There was a 2019 study that showed that 100 grams of berries per day, which is about 2/3 of a serving, reduced risk of all-cause mortality by 8%. And a 2012 study showed that eating berries just twice per week reduced risk of Parkinson's disease by 23%. A serving of berries is 1 cup, again, about the volume of our fist. And if you have really big berries, like really large strawberries, you would measure those sliced.
Okay, our last food to add to focus and really hone in our nutrient density is citrus.
Citrus fruits contain highly bioavailable vitamin C because the polyphenols that are unique to citrus increases the absorption of vitamin C. Plus, they've got some really cool fiber types like pectins, and they tend to be great sources of carotenoids and actually like a full range of polyphenols, not just the ones that help us get more vitamin C out of those oranges. High citrus consumption compared to low decreases all-cause mortality risk by about 10%. But just 2 or 3 servings of citrus fruit per week decreases all-cause mortality risk by about 8%. And there's some other specific health outcomes that eating more citrus can help reduce the risk of, like stroke, coronary heart disease, dementia, and depression. A serving is 1 cup, again, measured raw and chopped. For example, if you were going to measure orange segments, that's about half a grapefruit. Or if you just wanted to pick a whole fruit and pack it in your lunch, you would be looking for a fruit about the same size as your fist. So 1 medium navel orange or Valencia orange or Caracara orange, 2 mandarins or 3 clementines.
Wow. Again, Dr. Sarah, so much valuable information for those of us who are real nutrient nerds and we want to just take that nutrient density way up. This is such a simple list. And can we just remind everyone that you can get this simple tracking for these foods in the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix that's in Sarah's book or on her website. Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah. This was amazing.
Thank you.